You are now listening to the Be Your Own #LoveGoals podcast with Moe Ari
and Tiffany.
We just want you to remember that every person, regardless of identity, wants these three things: belonging, authenticity, and love.
And after a decade of partnership, we've learned to co-create these things and so much more.
So from wherever you're listening, we're going to go on a journey of becoming our own #LoveGoals. Now let's get into this episode. Hi, it's Moe Ari
and Tiffany,
and you are listening to the Be Your Own Love Goals podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Tiff, I've been thinking a lot about why we got married. We're in a time, I know you remember the 90s where, maybe it was the 2000s. We've lived a long life at this point.
We have.
Where there were all those statistics about the number of people getting divorced and I think at the same time, kind of the emergence or the reemergence of non-traditional relationship structures. Like even having a baby before you're married is a way of creating family outside of the norm.
Right.
That I don't think often gets enough honor or respect in our society. But I think I want us to talk about that. I want us to talk about what it's like to think beyond this very normative structure around marriage, to consider what other options might be available for people. Because I know I've had a lot of clients over the years who have decided for one reason or another, maybe they were just marrying later in life. They were like, it's better for us to live separately and be, long-term committed partners. We get together every evening for dinner, but I go to my house, he goes to his. I love hearing those stories about how people are making these unions work in a non-traditional way, but in a way that serves them. That's what the show is about, being your own love goals. So let's jump in.
Yes, this is good stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff. Yeah. It has me even getting to thinking about my earlier messages around marriage. The marriages that I witnessed as a kid, and then where did the idea even start for me that I wanted to be married? So you got my wheels over here turning.
I was gonna say let's have everybody in the audience right now ask themselves that: what early messages did you get around marriage? Just like Tiffany is saying here, that we all probably got some kind of message around marriage, some kind of message about what kind of union was appropriate or not appropriate for us. So we can start there.
Yeah. I mean, I am born and raised in the South.
Absolutely.
Baptist, okay?
Baptist.
So that is a denomination of the Christian faith. And I feel in some ways
it's giving fire baptized, walking in my purpose.
It's giving fire baptized, walking in my purpose, running for Jesus all my life. Okay. Church every Sunday, Bible study on Wednesday, ministry meetings throughout the week. Like, it was a community, in a lot of ways, it was the community outside of your own family growing up. And so having been raised in that tradition, that culture, that religious structure, marriage was the only option, or what appeared to be the only end goal for relationships. So you would date or quote unquote court, and then you would venture on to get married. And so
And what did that mean to you when you were thinking about that as a kid? What did marriage mean? Think about your younger self.
I mean, to me, it just felt like what you did when you wanted to live as a kid. Like, okay, we're going to live together. We got to get married, right? Because also in this religious tradition, it was no sex before marriage. It was none of that. So in order to even share a close, intimate space, you needed to get married. So as a kid, I'm thinking, this is the only way, right?
You also kind of witnessed that with your parents.
I witnessed that with my parents, them kind of starting out early, even having me before getting married. And then the challenges that they face with that route that they chose. And then
it's like your grandparents being like, y'all cannot stay here together, even though y'all have this beautiful Tiffany that's running around.
Right. And so literally going to great lengths for him to stay nearby with another relative, but not in the same house. So I think there was some recognition that, this is their kid and this is kind of bogus, but you still can't stay in the same bed
because y'all are not married.
Because y'all aren't married.
Yeah.
So those were some of the earlier messages I got around marriage. And I also feel like I think it's important to separate marriage from wedding, because I was going to say, I also was like, I had these fantasies around marriage, but when I think about them, they were very much around the wedding. What it would look like, what the decorations would look like, down to what flowers the flower girls would be throwing down the aisle. So it was very focused in on the wedding versus the marriage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I have a lot I could say about that.
Yeah.
I'll stick on the subject. I think growing up in Chicago, well, I wasn't Baptist growing up, but I think I am still the son of a preacher, the son of a priest.
Hey, a preacher woman.
Right, that's so true. A preacher woman.
Yeah.
And
that's so funny.
We were at the church very constantly, very regularly as well. I can't say that informed my thinking about marriage though, because by the time I came around, my parents were already 32 and they're baby boomers. So in their group, that would have been pretty late.
Yeah.
For people to be getting married. So like for our group, we're going to go to all of our weddings in this decade, whereas they probably would have had all of their friends get married in their 20s.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up seeing many weddings. I think I went to a total of 2, maybe 3 weddings my entire upbringing. So wedding and even being at a church, our church was predominantly my parents' age group or older leading. So definitely
they were
heavy,
already married.
Right. Already married. There were not weddings.
Yeah.
And certainly, so I didn't get a lot of that experience. So that was not a thing. So I really only had my parents' example of marriage. So I didn't really get the wedding aspiration. I got the marriage aspiration as a part of what I was handed down.
Got it.
And I will say it's also interesting in this context because I also grew up with a lot of people at the church who were married, but their male partners didn't come to church. So I don't think that I always saw partnership at church either. It's just an interesting situation living in a more urban environment, less of the traditions of the South and things like that. So very interesting context, but I would say my ideas around marriage came from my parents. Not necessarily heavy-handedly. They didn't talk a lot about, you should go get married or something like that. It was just more so watching them and being like, okay, marriage is the thing. You get married.
Right.
I kind of had my own expectations around that. I think there are benefits and drawbacks to them being so open about what was happening for them. So I didn't really get any kind of delusion or illusion around what it would take to be in a marriage. They were definitely good at showing me that it's hard work. So when I thought about being married, I think I thought a lot about the work. And I spent a lot of time thinking about how I would want to communicate more intentionally and what I would want a marriage to look like in order to be successful. There are many things that I love that my parents did that I'm like, yes, we should keep that in the next generation. Plenty of things that they did that I was like, no, let's improve on that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say my ideas around marriage, certainly, I can't say that they weren't informed by Christianity, But because of the environment I grew up in Chicago, it's a little bit more, a lot more urban. The makeup of Christianity and how it's practiced, I think, is a bit different. And I would say I didn't see a lot of weddings. I didn't see a lot of people coming to church with their partners. It was heavily like women come to church by themselves.
And that happened for me a lot too. And I think that's how this is it's weird because for the longest time, my mom and I went to church and my dad didn't come, right? So that was a common thing that happened. And I feel like as a young kid, the wedding was my preoccupation with being married. But as I got older and explored dating and relationship for myself, I began to kind of like take a step back and then peer back into my parents' relationship and marriage to say, okay, this is a little bit of a challenge. This works really well, similarly to what you were saying, and really beginning to form my own ideas about it. But as a younger child, it was heavily influenced around the religious structures around me. But oddly enough, my parents, like, they were in it, but not in it. In the structure. Like, it wasn't like they were like, yeah, you got to do this and this is the only way. But they almost felt like they haphazardly fell into this structure and then they were operating in that.
Well, I mean, and you also had the benefit of witnessing your parents get married as the oldest child. So that can also inform some of your understandings around wedding that I didn't witness.
That's true, because I was legitimately in the wedding.
Exactly. Whereas it was more so like a veil. Marriage was more of a veil I had to look behind, or like wedding was not a part of my thinking about it. But for you, marriage was very much like wedding. There was this very big ritual that happened in your life. It's a ritual. It's a very big community ritual. Your whole family's there. Your mom is in white. People are crying. You're like, what the heck is going on as a 5-year-old?
I'm crying.
You're crying. Don't know what's about to happen. But now you know you live together.
Exactly.
Now all of a sudden, all of these things are changing. And so you as a child are like, okay, the wedding. That's that wedding did that. Not really understanding all of the other things. Absolutely. It's very interesting. So as we think about like what messages we got around weddings and marriage and things when we were younger, I'm wondering, some people choose not to marry for a lot of different reasons. Maybe they've been married before. Maybe they have a partner who passed away and they're now a widow and they chose not to remarry. But they have a long-term partner. So there are a lot of ways in which people could decide not to marry. Now I'm wondering if you've had any thoughts about that. Of course, here we always encourage that people be their own love goals. So whatever works for them. When I say thoughts about it, I'm kind of wondering how people have shared with you their choice or their choice to get married or not.
For a lot of people, marriage with the person that they chose to get married to felt complete. So the act of marriage, whether, they become divorced, I would say more so often with people who've experienced the loss of a partner, it feels complete. I've often heard, I don't have to get married again. Like, I appreciate the partnership with a new person. I can appreciate the companionship. But as for the space in my life where, marriage was the goal, that I don't feel like I need that anymore.
Right.
And so the most present example I could think of is my grandmother, who was married to her husband for over 25 years. He passed away, and she had a long-term companion for over 15 years after that. And they chose not to get married. Now, I think that, a lot of the work, especially in the beginning, is grief and not wanting to open your heart again or not really wanting to lean in again. But a lot of it was, I don't need to do that anymore. And she was completely at peace with the decision that she made. I think for older people, potentially, you might start to think about the legalities of being married in terms of how your estate or things might be handled. And so that might enter the picture a bit more for people at that stage in their life. But for a lot of people, marriage, the commitment or the choice to marry feels complete. That's what I've heard.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a perfect example. I cannot say what I would do in that situation. I honestly probably would feel complete as well. I think marriage, for me, is marriage is, it's almost like a rite of passage that I only really wanted to enter into once and with the particular person. There is no judgment for people who do that multiple times or anything, because everybody has their own definitions around marriage and their own desires around love. For me, it's like, we have experienced this. It's not something I feel like I need to experience multiple times. The actual physical marriage, the union, the love, I would love to experience that many times in a lifetime. But the legalities and the technical marriage parts is like, I'm not certain. I get when you have kids and other things and the legal importance of that, which is why we've opted into the legal union. And I think this is a good place for us to land for a second before we get into our question that needs an answer. Because me and you, a lot of people probably don't know this. We had a civil union before we got married.
We did.
And we knew that we wanted to get married, but we weren't ready to pay for a wedding and all those things. But we were like, we need to legally make this work, because we want to share benefits. We want to save the extra money from our checks. So there are a lot of like legal reasons why someone would get married. But that didn't feel connected to the love that we had. And I think even for the marriage part, it felt like it solidified in a spiritual way our union, and that is why we wanted to go through that particular rite of passage. But if we could do away with the legal necessity for it, we would not probably participate in it. You know, like, we don't really need to. I didn't really need to submit those papers to the government to say that we were married. The ceremony itself would have been so enough for me. And so I see why so many people will just do a spiritual ceremony, because that really felt like enough. The paperwork and all of that feels like it's for somebody else. And so it's like, yeah, we'll do that. We'll give you that, government. But like, for me, that spiritual rite of passage that we went through, that ceremony was enough for me. And so I could see someone just saying, let's just do a ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is just as beautiful and can be just as poignant as going another route. And for the people that do end up opting, even after divorce, to get married again, they, sometimes oftentimes they do the legality and they do the ceremonies, and they have their reasons for doing it. And I think, like you were saying earlier, like, be your own love goals. I think only you can determine why you're doing what you're doing, how you want to do what you're doing. But for me and for us, I feel like at the heart of that union or that marriage, beyond the wedding day, beyond the marriage certificate, beyond being on one another's benefits, it's that commitment to one another. It's the love that we share that I think is at the root of that, at the core of that.
Absolutely.
So for me and for us, I feel like at the core of marriage, beyond the wedding, beyond the legalities, beyond the marriage certificate, it is the love and commitment that we share.
Absolutely.
And I mean, nothing else matters. Everything else from there is extra. So I love weddings. I think they're beautiful and amazing. And for me, the core of that still has to be love and commitment to one another.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to just say again that I feel like what I was trying to convey before is that spirituality, the spiritual union felt like enough.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why so many people would just say, like, I don't need to go through this paperwork again. Mm-hmm. When I say I wouldn't necessarily go through that again, is that I feel complete with the paperwork or the legal connection.
Right.
Like, because when people go through a divorce or they are widowed, then you have to do all of that financial legal separation. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want to have to go through that again.
Right.
After having experienced the ceremony, it was very clear to me that there is a real significance to the ceremony that the legal system can't capture. And so when we did our civil union and we had to go to the court, it didn't have the same sacredness as the ceremony that we created, designed, decided what the rituals would be. And so while it was very meaningful and special, and it was still like a symbolic moment, you know, we didn't get to coordinate with that judge or anything.
No. We got assigned a random judge in, I don't know.
And we are grateful for them, but it just wasn't the same. Yeah. And so I think for anybody who is deciding whether or not marriage is for them, I want them to also, like you're saying, take a step back from the idea of a wedding as this like legal entity, and really think about, okay, even if you didn't get married, what kind of symbolic ritual could you create that would codify, is that the word? Codify the union, to just say, like, to make that moment poignant and very special.
Exactly.
That felt more meaningful to me than anything else. I mean, the license has been signed and it's, you know, it's official as of Illinois law that we are married. But that part didn't matter to me. You could have said, I don't really need to do this on paper. And I'd have been like, okay, cool, let's have a wedding. Like, I think for me, the marriage is then the work that we do beyond that moment.
Exactly. And I think for people that are in the space where they're deciding on whether they want to get married, or for a lot of people, I feel like marriage is like, it looks sexy and it's a fantasy and it's like, oh, I want that. And if you want that, I want that for you. And also recognizing how big, well, not necessarily big, but just how much work, like you're saying, is also necessary for marriage, because it's not just the wedding day. And I think that's what we really want people to know and understand, that it is, like you're saying, that spiritual connection, that commitment to one another that goes beyond that wedding day, you know, that one moment in time. Like, it is hopefully a lifetime of commitment and work to, you know, this person that you really love and want to be with.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I think that that's very, very beautiful. This idea that it's a moment that really goes beyond that particular moment. And it's really the work and all of the things that go into it.
Yeah. So when you're deciding, the question is not, do I want a wedding? It's like, do I want to sign up to be married? And when I say sign up, it's not like you're signing up for a death sentence. It's just the recognition that it is work. It's work.
Absolutely. So we got a question here, Tiffany.
All right.
I'm going to throw that question at you today.
Okay.
I grew up thinking that I wanted to get married, have a wedding, and all the things that come with that. After being with my girlfriend and living together for 10 years, the need for things like marriage, a wedding, etc. don't feel as necessary. My girlfriend is from a more traditional Christian family, and she definitely feels pressure for us to finally get married. Because we got together so young, they weren't pressuring us back then. But after a couple of pregnancy scares, I think things started to shift for her towards marriage. And for me, it was the opposite. I wonder if I am missing out on something by not getting married, or am I really just content? Also, if something isn't broke, what is there to fix or change?
This is an interesting space to be in.
Yeah.
And I personally would say that it's important for you and your girlfriend to get on the same page about marriage and what that means. Because I think the definition potentially, or the impact, or what it would mean to you all as a couple to move to that next stage, could be different. So it's important to just have a direct conversation. Like, what would it mean that we got married? Like, we went through this process beyond like family pressure or influence, beyond, our religious traditions. What would that mean for us? And I think getting on the same page might lead you to some level playing field to be able to understand the conversation. Now, the part of the question is something isn't broke, what is there to fix? I think that there's always room for evolution and for growth. And so something might not necessarily be broken to fix it, but there might be some enhancements, or it might be some things that you can do to make it even better and even more beautiful. Now, that might not be marriage, but it could be. So I think it's necessary to explore what that looks like for the two of you in this relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think what stands out to me is the shift inside of the person who submitted this question. Mm-hmm. So you went from having more of a leaning toward marriage and then not. And it was after some pregnancy scares. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wonder what the shift was. And so that's kind of a rhetorical question at this point because we don't have that information. Yeah. But then what's the shift? Mm-hmm. And checking in with yourself about whether or not there have been things that came up around compatibility, commitment for you. Do you really want to be with this person long term? Mm-hmm. Really get solid on that. Because if it is that you really want to be with her long term, then maybe there's a way to symbolically commit to one another long term. And that could be what she's looking for through marriage. And so it's important to have a conversation. Is there a way that you all can symbolize your union and define that for a longer term commitment? So you've been together 10 years and she's like, well, okay, will you be with me the rest of this lifetime? Maybe there's a way to establish that as the future of your relationship. Right. That includes marriage or doesn't include marriage. But I think it's important to have the conversation and to separate that conversation from other people's desires for your relationship. Because they do not have to be married. Okay. So they can't tell you, you all should be getting married because they don't have to live together. They don't have to do any of that work. So they shouldn't get to live your life. They've lived their life. Let them control what happens in their house. They should not control what happens in your relationship. Right. Explore with your partner why those pregnancy scares made her want to get married. Was it that she didn't want to be by herself with the child? Maybe that got to her. Just ask more questions about that. We want more information.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really great question. And I wish this couple all the best in deciding, what is the best next step for them in relationship, whether it includes marriage or not. So thank you so much for sending in that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good one. And I hope you all figure out what feels the best for you all, meet your own love goals, and really just explore whether or not it's the marriage, the spiritual symbolism of what future and long-term commitment can mean, whether it's the wedding, like what is it that, your partner really wants? What is it that you really want? You all decide that together. You can co-create something really meaningful.
Absolutely.
So Tiff, I have a question for you. As we move into Truth or Truth and we're wrapping up this episode, we'd love to just ask each other fun questions throughout the episodes. My question for you is, what's a song you could sing by heart to me right now?
Well, I have a lot of those. I love singing. And
that
I love singing to
the
you.
actual words to and
all the ad-libs?
Yeah.
It would probably be Giving Myself by Jennifer Hudson.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Or Best Part by her and Daniel Caesar.
Can I hear a little bit of that with the ad-libs?
You really gonna make me sing?
Just a little bit for the audience.
You're the coffee that I need in the morning. You're the sunshine in the rain when it's pouring.
You kind of messed up there, so that don't count as a song.
Okay, let me start again.
I need Giving Myself by Jennifer Hudson.
I can't. My voice is not prepared right now for that. Okay. You're the coffee that I need in the morning. You're the sunshine in the rain when it's pouring. Won't you give yourself to me? Give it all. I just wanna see ya. I just wanna see how beautiful you are. You know that I see it. I know you're a star.
I'm gonna put a little auto tune on this when we
What's the auto tune for?
No, just a little.
Y'all got me out here singing. I hope that sounded okay.
Tiff's question for Moe.
So Moe, what is the first thing that you noticed about me?
When I met you, that you were so open. That you were so ready to talk. You were so ready to connect. You kind of came into the room when I met you, and you just held out your hand, and I was very shy, so I was prepared to not really talk when you came in. But you were like, "Hi, I'm Tiffany," and I'm like, "Oh yes, I should shake her hand." So I remember just being very nervous, and I didn't know if you were gonna like me. And all of the things, but we ended up being really great friends, and it took no time.
I felt the same way, but I definitely was like, I'm gonna lean in here and be open and see what comes of this friendship.
I am so grateful that you did.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
I'm so grateful we got married.
I am very grateful that we got married. For me, it was definitely the symbolism, the spiritual coming together, the rite of passage that I wanted to go through with you.
Yeah.
Specifically.
I'm so grateful for it, and I'm grateful for the ways that we were so intentional with our ceremony and all of the other rituals around marriage that made it even better. And as we've said throughout this whole episode, we just encourage people to be their own love goals. You know, whatever you want marriage, your wedding, your ceremony, or lack thereof to be, I think you get to choose what that is, and you get to co-create that with your partner. And so I'm wishing all the best for you in that decision and how you decide to move forward.
Oh. Well, this has been Be Your Own Love Goals podcast with Moe Ari
and Tiffany.
Thank you all so much for joining us. You all have a great day and be well.
Bye. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Video episodes are on YouTube and Spotify.
If you want your question included in an upcoming episode, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Be Your Own Love Goals, or check out our website at lovegoalspodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Bye.